Hi, I'm Mark Sumner, CEO and founder of Robertson Sumner. Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast, where we will share learnings, best practices and failures with some of the biggest names in the IT industry, all with the simple aim of being the go-to place for IT sales professionals and managers to learn from others with the ultimate goal of maximising performance and growing the channel. Hello, I'm Mark Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Steve Lowe from Titan. How are we doing, Steve?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for coming in. So we saw each other at CRM. That was obviously a good night for you guys.
Yeah, fantastic night for us. We got highly commended in Storage Distributor of the Year. So we had a good night, and I think that's when our paths crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. But first of all, I want to go back of how you got into the industry. But before I do that, I looked on your profile, and I saw that you went over to America to specialise in cooking chicken or something in Kentucky. Is that right?
Straight to my LinkedIn. Yeah. Well, I went to the University of Kentucky for 1 year, my second year, which was amazing.
It wasn't to do fried chicken.
It wasn't to do fried chicken, no. Although that's kind of what I specialise in now. I've done a year out there. I mean, it's a different world. 70,000 seater American football stadium on campus. 20,000 seater basketball stadium. Yeah, great.
70,000 American football seaters.
Yeah. Great experience. When I played football for the uni, we had a man and his dog watching us, so it was another world. So,
and what did you study at uni? What were you doing?
Journalism. Yeah. So obviously I'm in IT now.
And that's the perfect route to IT, isn't it? It sounds like IT from journalism.
By Kentucky, yeah.
So your first step into IT, how did it come about? What happened?
Well, I finished university, and I went to a graduate recruitment company in the city, who promised me the world and big dreams, and the first place.
You fell for it.
I obviously, yeah, absolutely. I qualified, which was good, and the first place
What did you have to qualify for? What did you have to do?
You had to do an opening gambit. You had to talk about yourself, and I think it was about what you had done that summer, and then a psychometric test, and a group challenge or a group task, and then a one-to-one interview. But it was a process of elimination along the way, which was quite
tough,
quite ruthless. It was tough. Well, it's tough on a youngster with, a lot of pressure on him, trying to find his way. But I guess that's the nature of the beast. So I was lucky enough to get through, and the first place they sent me for a job interview was where I ended up for almost 10 years.
Beta,
yeah.
Okay, so tell me about that. So you started as what? What role did you go into?
I started as an account manager. So straight into cold calling, and I had a small base, but yeah, straight into I was given a buying group, and I started with another person, which helped, to bounce ideas off of each other. But I certainly struggled. If I'm going to be honest with you, it was a bit of a wake-up call to me.
What was hard about it?
I think, if I'm honest, you come out of university, and so this is true for me, I can't speak for anyone else, but you come out of uni, you go through this graduate recruitment program, you qualify, you feel on top of the world, you go into the real world and feel like you're
Joe No One.
That doesn't impress anyone.
Yeah.
You've got to, there's no shortcuts. So hard graft, which coming out of university is a culture shock, and there's only survival of the fittest, I guess. So you've got to adapt, and I certainly struggled when it was a wake up call to me when I.
So you were given a few accounts, or was it cold call?
It was. I think I had 6 accounts, a long list of prospects, and a target which was just astronomical to hit in first month, and not much training, to be fair. You really slung in at the deep end and learn as you go. So I certainly struggled. I could have been out of the industry within the first few weeks. It's remarkable, really, because I did find it hard to adapt at first.
What was the hardest bit?
I think understanding the understanding the proposition, the industry, a million different part numbers, SKUs, products, customers, the system in itself. Just the basics, actually. There's nothing complicated about it. It's but yeah, I certainly found it difficult in my first few weeks, and then I got quite fortunate with on a cold call one day, which changed everything. And
tell us about that. What happened?
I was calling through my list after I think I had a telling off from our sales director for not making enough calls, and so I was on the phone, and one day I got lucky, and someone answered the phone, placed a $100,000 order.
Wow!
I still remember his name to this day, and Craig Michaels, if you're out there, thank you. And that was a recurring business for me after that, and it lit the blue touch paper, I guess, and the rest is history. Yeah.
So suddenly you were a bit of a golden boy then, weren't you?
Well, yeah, absolutely, complete luck. Yeah,
how has Steve done it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, but no, I mean it's one of those things. I think there's a lesson in there somewhere about perseverance. You call enough people. You
can create your own luck as well. If you knew enough calls, you're going to create.
Absolutely. So you call enough people, you're going to get opportunities, and that's what happened. And that was for inspiration, I guess, for. Kicking on, and wanting to do more. And
did that give you your sort of first big paycheck? Nice
first
bit of commission.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've touched on. I studied journalism, and I knew on the first day of university I didn't want to do journalism because someone in the university put the journalism school in a business school, and the first PowerPoint presentation they put up was the average income each graduate will make, and I knew on the first day where, I wasn't right for that profession. So
greedy salesman.
Yeah, pretty much. And that was it. I think. As soon as I finished university, I was doing sports commentary on the weekends and stuff. It was fantastic fun. But I would have really struggled, I think, in that industry. So as soon as I was out, I was into sales.
So your first year or two as an account manager.
Yeah.
What was the positives and what was the negatives about it?
Positives would certainly be as a youngster, cash, money, commission, being rewarded for success. All of the trappings. You could go out and do. Have some fun and I still didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. But I worked for a company who looked after me, and they the positives were that they encouraged success and celebrated it, and there was a culture of rewarding success as well, which was great because it pushed you on to do more.
Drive you on,
which was great. You do feel indestructible sometimes, where when you're making calls and working hard, to not get recognition is quite demoralising sometimes. So. Yeah, I certainly worked in a company where that was rewarded. Did
you touched on it earlier when we had lunch about prospecting and how you'd prospect to look at accounts? Were you given any training how to prospect accounts, or literally just cold up and hope for the best?
Call up and hope for the best.
It's bad, isn't it? Really,
it is bad. Yeah. But then again, you get a lot of rejection if you don't do your homework. So you learn quickly. And I think in the early days I was selling a lot of product. And when you asked me about the negatives were it was quite mundane. It was a great sales floor full of great people. It's the first time I've spoken about it in a year. So yeah, it's quite sad to reflect back. But great salespeople, great sales floor, great energy, just boring product. Just not very inspiring. But the people who you sell to were fantastic, so that would keep you interested. I think that would be the negatives in the early days. But then I guess as we progressed, we started moving into more exciting technologies and solutions, and we stopped selling run rate product and longer sales cycles. Some interesting business.
So you became a senior account manager after a couple of years. Now, normally when I ask someone who says, "How did you become a senior account manager?" it's just I got a bigger target.
I got older. Yeah, that's essentially what it was. It didn't carry. It doesn't. Job titles don't really.
I love that when people say, "Yeah, I was an account manager. Yeah, I got promoted to a senior account manager." What did you get?
Well, I sort of got my target went up to sort of double, and I got a different job title. I didn't know the job was exactly the same.
But I can't remember there being any benefit to it actually, apart from talking about it 9 years later, obviously now. Yeah, I'll probably a self-made promotion, but I had the same accounts. Nothing really changed. It was after that though. I mean, I brought, obviously, as you progress in the industry, in a company where if you work hard, you do get results, and you bring on bigger companies, bigger customers, and
What type of customers were you dealing with at that stage? Is it SMEs, enterprise?
No, not enterprise. Then it was. I'd still say there was a lot of. It was really. What were we talking? 2010. There was still a lot of box shifting going on in the industry. A hell of a lot more then than there is today. Not much solution sales. So the enterprise business came a lot later. These guys were just, they were just shifting products, and it was all based on relationship really. Cost secondary, but relationship, and you build up good relationships with people with big budgets, and you're capable of bringing in a big number. So that was the early days. Yeah.
So then you got a chance to become a manager.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? How did you get recognised to become a manager?
So Ben Jackson, he was the sales director. He created the Technology Solutions division. He joined actually 3 months before I did, but obviously he'd been in the industry for a long time. He was always he was selling product which would be installed into solutions. And that was about run rate culture, volume distribution, volume sales. And we woke up one day and realised, there's more opportunity. What are these going into? How can we impact that? How can we get stickier customers?
So it's because it tape desk drives and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. It's tapes and internal drives. But Ben personally he sells more LTO tape than any man in Europe. He's just crazy, really. Just fantastic salesperson and great relationships across Europe. But yeah, we decided. I think it was about the time when the CRN VAR top 100 lists were starting to come out, and this just brought a wave of opportunity to us that we weren't used to. We didn't know the names of a lot of these companies, and we started taking a more strategic view at the customers and our value to them. So we created a team of technology solutions, and we would move into solution sales. So with that, I lost my biggest accounts and moved into this new world where which was a steep learning curve, and then sales management as well.
Yeah, so almost moving into selling, gone from sort of box shifting to solution selling and into individual contributor into management as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to process there. To be fair, that I haven't thought about this self-reflection, but that does encapsulate the change that happened in the industry around about that time, where resellers and bars were becoming MSPs, or they were certainly becoming more service-led. And at that time we identified that we needed to become more valuable and sell more solution-based products, become more of a trusted advisor to our customers rather than ultimately a price point.
So Steve, without slagging off distribution, well, I am going to slag off distribution, but it's not my view, it's a view I get told a lot, is they don't add any value. They're just there to give a price, give a quote or benchmark against for a reseller, and they really don't add any value. So what's your opinion of that? Have you ever heard that opinion yourself? Because I get told that a lot throughout the industry. Distribution don't add value. They're called added value distribution, but they don't add value.
My answer would be you're dealing with the wrong distributor. No, to be fair, that is a common feedback I receive, not about our service or our business ever, but it is a common frustration across so many customers, and it hasn't improved. I don't feel like that conversation has moved, but that's why we set up Titan.
Do you think that's because in the days where you're just selling product, you're just getting, I don't know as much because you're in distribution, but you're giving out quotes, etc., and you're giving out pricing. Whereas if you're moving towards solutions, you've got to add more value. You've got to be more than just a price point.
Well, yeah. When you're selling solutions, obviously you have to add knowledge and sell the benefits of a product rather than just the features, or even what I see quite commonly, deal registration and putting your margin on, which is, that doesn't add any value. So
why does that happen? Let's just touch on that point a minute. So deal regs. Mm-hmm. A lot of people complain to me about deal regs, like people go into a vendor an end user customer goes to a partner, they deal reg the opportunity with a vendor, but then they still go and ask for other competing quotes from other distributors or whatever. So why would that happen?
It depends on the business. So you do see a lot of we refer to as ambulance chasing, so people chasing part numbers, but a lot of this comes off of frameworks, or people do deal with the customers will have multiple resellers they'll send an opportunity out to, so the natural progression for that opportunity, if it's already been spec'd up, is to filter across the relevant distribution businesses.
So if I'm an end user customer, I've got an opportunity, I've spec'd it up, I want part A, B, C, D, E, and I just spam it out to 10 distributors and hope for the best price.
From customer to reseller, and then and then the reseller would I'd say usually follow suit. Sometimes though, if you want to be valuable to your customer, I would challenge them why they've spec'd up that solution, or have they spec'd up that solution? Has a competitor spec that solution up? Is it fit for purpose? Does it fit the budget? That's how you really add value to your customer. And I'd say the distribution should be doing the same back. And for us, a deal registration is dynamite. It's gold dust. That's
why is it a good opportunity for you if you get a deal reg?
Well, you're being entrusted. Firstly, it's a commendation of your ability and the service you offer, because a reseller is entrusting you to, one, register that deal, lock them in, spec up a solution, provide a competitive price point, and all support relevant. And if you really want to look after your customer, when I say customer, I mean reseller in this instance, you have to bridge that gap for them. You have to join them on the call with their customer and explain to their customer the benefits. And when I say benefits, I don't mean this product does X, Y, Z. I mean this product will save you money on total cost of ownership, power consumption. This is the true benefits of a solution, and this is why you deal with me. And hopefully next time they don't send it out to 10 people, they'll send it to you because they trust you.
So when you get with either at Beta or where you are now at Titan, if you got a deal reg coming from you from a reseller, that's a hot opportunity?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a
golden
all
nugget.
systems go in our yeah. Which usually ends up on our technical director's desk, and we're all over that. I mean that's first thing we always do is deal register. We don't waste any time, and we're on the phone to our vendors.
So when you get an opportunity that's not deal registered to you as a distributor, and you get an opportunity that's coming, it's like, I want to quote Steve from this price on XYZ, and obviously you'd then probably think that's probably gone out to 10 distributors. What do you do? Do you actually challenge back the reseller? Do you look at it or not work as hard? Because you must say something to.
Well, you always know when something's been spec'd up from somewhere else, and you always know whether that path will lead.
How do you know?
Because it's anything with anything with what's had intelligence put into it. A solution, a problem-solved solution, has been deal registered somewhere else because it's got somebody else's IP all over it. You can tell someone else has taken the time to write that. The issue really is that if that happens at the ground level with the end user and works its way up, and everyone is deal registering the same technologies all the time, and this is kind of what I see a lot, is that ambulance chasing culture, reactivity. My challenge is, what does the reseller do when they get locked out of a deal? If they do they put another solution in place? Do they challenge? And they should really, because unless you're dealing with the frameworks and the public sector, you do have the ability to harness or refocus customers' ability to send opportunities out. I don't. If I'm an end user, for example, you would be. If you have a requirement in this office today, if you send out the same opportunity to 10 people. That's 10 emails back you're going to receive.
10 quotes, 10 quotes.
It's so much. It's so much of your time, energy, and the reality is there's not going to be too much difference in what you get. There'll be obviously different ends of the spectrum, but there's not going to be too much differentiation. If you build a relationship with someone, then maybe the off chances that they narrow down that net and they decide upon a trusted customer, trusted relationship, and you've earned the right to be there. And I think that's how you cultivate relationships across any walk of life. You have to gain trust and credibility, and you've got to show integrity, honesty. You've got to challenge them back as well.
How can you show integrity, trust, all those things over a quote? If you're getting a quote just sent out
to you? If you're just sending a quote, you're not doing your job. That is fact. You have to do more, especially when it's a solution. I mean, if you're selling pencils, pens, you're gonna send a quote. But if you're someone's live data is going onto this product, that's a really important piece of equipment that's going into someone's infrastructure. So, do you want to be responsible for just sending a quote? Do you want to be integral to that solution? Because if you're in our world, data storage or cybersecurity, that's just one part of the puzzle, and there's a whole infrastructure, there's a whole business network of other solutions that you could be providing that customer with wraparound services and recurring revenue far outside what one distributor can provide you. I'm talking about long-term relationships where you can provide multi-layered technologies into their company for many, many years. So I'd say that if you're just sending a quote back, that's a long answer, but if you're just sending a quote back, you're probably not doing your job.
Would you say then, if you, again, just going on what you said before about a deal reg, if you're a reseller, and I know you're in distribution, but if you're a reseller and you get locked out of a deal reg, should the resellers then be advising alternative technologies? I've been knocked out of this deal reg with Dell, actually you'll be better off with Lenovo XYZ, and providing a different quote, or does that happen? Because they almost they know they've been knocked out of the deal, haven't they?
Yeah, you'll know quite soon. I mean, I think you've got to explore your options and your customers. So if you qualify the opportunity, it doesn't become product based, it becomes a solution based. You're trying to solve a problem, and it doesn't, whatever decision you come to, it has to be fit for purpose, the best solution for your customer. So however you come to that decision or that thought process, as long as there is some thought into it, you should be able to provide a solution to your customer where deal reg isn't so important. However, if things are attached with part numbers, or you see the same solution being quoted all the time and you are losing out, then you need to start thinking about alternatives. And
because otherwise you're just quoting and benchmarking, you never get any deals, are you? You're providing
absolutely and
information services.
The majority of people in the channel I know get paid on profit, so quoting alternative technologies is margin rich as well.
If there's a newer technology, you get more margin out of that?
I'd say newer technology, or not a household name, a tier one as we would refer to it as.
So no one's going to make millions out of Dell now, are they? There's just not enough margin in that.
I don't sell Dell, but my opinion would be probably not.
No. Or HP now is like 1 or 2%.
There's a reason why these companies are at the top of the game, top of the market. So I couldn't discredit them. But I just think it's more competitive up the top, and I think if you want to keep doing the same thing, you keep quoting the same technology or the same vendor, you're going to be pigeonholed, or you're just going to be sent the same opportunities every time. But if you try and do something different, you've got an opportunity to differentiate, and that could be the difference between making a real impact or not. And you also see over years, I've seen customers strive for accreditations, and they'll move up the chains. But I feel sorry for the smaller company who is very technical and he's got very great, fantastic relationships with his customers, but somebody's a platinum partner and can undercut him. I feel like it's not necessarily the best model. I can't think, I think there's a better way to do this, but the reality is if you're quoting tier one technology, it does get quite stuffy. And
because these distributors now, some of them are like badge collectors, aren't they? Let's just get as many Nudet logo vendors on our books. But half of them, I look at them thinking, well, how can you be recommending a particular vendor when you've got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 competitive vendors on your portfolio? How can you actually be recommending the right solution?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the customer gets the right solution, fit for purpose, then, it's okay. But if I'm a vendor, I would look at that situation and I would wonder if we're getting ROI.
Yeah, are we getting pushed first? Because if you're one of 8 or 9 competitive vendors, I'm thinking whether it's even if it's Emergentech, Rubrix, Nutanix, whoever it is, you can't be being pushed first.
I do think
unless you've got sole distribution rights,
which doesn't happen on those type of products. But yeah, I think that's it's a problem that vendors may want to look at. Like I say, it's all about the customer. So if the customer's getting the right solution, then that's okay. But if I'm a vendor in a crowded room, in a competitive space where you're right to ask those questions. Only the vendor knows the answer. But yeah, there's a difference between volume distribution and value, and I think
value is more expensive.
But I think vendors will look at a twofold strategy typically, and they'll want somebody who can sell solutions and somebody who can shift. And I do think that if your product sits on the value side and you want specialism and you really want focus, and you all of a sudden find yourself in a space with 8 or 9 competitors around you, I'm going to be asking serious questions.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, and like I say, not my space, but that's my interpretation. Yeah.
So let's move on with your career. So then you got an opportunity to move into management, selling solutions, but you were a sales guy selling volume. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a big jump.
Yes, huge jump.
So how did you manage that?
My biggest challenge was moving from being friends, going down the pub with the guys, and then all of a sudden becoming a manager. That was a really tough transition. I never truly overcame that, to be fair. I really struggled because it takes time. I think that's the best thing. The quickest thing you can do is add consistency to your approach, but you're talking about unraveling 7 years of friendships and being one of the guys, and then all of a sudden you're a manager. So that was the toughest challenge. Selling solutions, that's another issue in itself.
What did you find easier, selling solutions or the management where
selling solutions?
Yeah,
I was fully always in control of that. But becoming a manager was a real tough transition. I didn't have, I can't think I had any training either at the time, which is quite incredible.
Training in the channel is pathetic, isn't it? Like I hear people going into sales roles, not even told the basics of BANT or anything or any sales training, and then they go into management, and it's just like, good news, Steve. You got 14 of them. Just do what you did before. Get on with it.
Yeah, I always wanted to become a manager. I felt like I was...
Why? Ego, or just thought it's promotion, or what?
No, not ego. I always I felt like I feel like I was a good leader. I started thinking about management a long time before, and it was just an aspiration. So I was planning for it, and I put it on radars. That's what I wanted. And when it came to me, I was completely out of my depth very quickly. I had to try and change everything. So that was difficult, and the lack of training, as you touched upon. Yeah, I mean, I think it does sound like it's an inherent problem in the industry.
I think it's I had the same problem. I thought it'd be great being a manager.
Yeah.
I thought not being big-headed. I was a great recruiter. Appalling manager.
Yeah.
Appalling manager, because I they were friends, or I'd like to go down the pub, etc. So it's like any disciplinary, I wouldn't follow through. I'd cancel meetings. I'd do one-to-ones, wouldn't turn up, and then it's like it was terrible. And the consistency is interesting because I'm not very good at the consistency. So when I look at managers now, and luckily I've got Mark and Callum who are managers now, and they are consistent. What do you think is the main quality of what makes a good manager now?
That's a good question, because there's not a simple answer to that. In my opinion, it's listening. It's the ability to listen. Too often, I believe, targets are set without any thought into how people are going to get there.
Yeah, definitely.
And also, there has to be a methodological way of putting a target and working back. And I just think too often a target's placed and then on you go and hit your target.
I used to do that.
And I
all
don't.
the time.
Yeah.
I used to give them a target. It's like, right, that's a target. You feel all right? Right, then get on with it.
Yeah. And I think the ability to listen. I went on the training course about 3 months ago. And no one, well, my team know that now. But I took a day off to go, and I had to. I just felt like I needed a refresh, needed some ideas, and it was the best thing I think it might be the best thing I've ever done.
And who gave? Obviously, you decided yourself you needed that.
Well, no, Ben and I spoke about it. And
Ben told me you were a bad manager.
And Ben said, Ben politely said, "You need to go. You're rubbish." No, but it was just a. It was great because you kind of learn on the job for so long without thinking about the reasons why we put these mechanisms in place or why we manage people like that. And it changed my outlook completely because we'd built a business plan and we were doing really well. We'd executed. We're 9-10 months into the new business, and I'm still doing the same things I was doing before without really thinking about it. It's the only thing I hadn't really put much thought into is how to manage the people. And I just think my answer is the ability to listen to the people, because the people are responsible for your culture. And if you entrust the people to build a culture and listen to them, then you can really harness something quite powerful, and the target becomes irrelevant, because if everyone comes in every day feeling valued and working hard, then you're onto a winner.
And that does come from the management.
It does.
Yeah. Going back to myself, when I was doing the job, I felt great doing the job, and I can teach anyone to do the job. But to try and listen to them about what they wanted to do and their target, I just couldn't do it. I was like, well, just do it. My answer was to them, just do it. Yeah. Just do it. Yeah. Or ask me if you've got a problem, but just do it. Obviously, that's no good. You can't teach like that. And luckily, like I said, Mark and Callum are, much more good listening skills and more patient than me. But I think management, and I take my hat off to anyone that makes the transition from being a successful biller, a really good individual contributor, which you need to be quite selfish and quite narrow-minded about actually what you're doing, customer focused. And really, I much prefer that now. I'm not interested in listening to everyone else about their opinion. I want to be like, this is what I'm customer focused. That's what the outcome I want. To be a manager, you have to put the employees first, and I think it's really tough. It's really tough to be consistent at that.
You have to. Consistency is key. I think if you run a business, you have to be selfish. But if you,
I can do that. Yeah.
if you really want to understand what motivates people, you have to listen, and you'll be really surprised if you asked your employees to list 1 to 10 what's important to them. I promise you would have a different outlook, or your interpretation of what's important to your staff would be completely different to what it is. That was a bit of an eye-opener to me, actually. What the majority of people really care about, and feedback and reassurance, recognition, involvement, inclusion, all those things, where for me I would always say money and all these selfish egotistical qualities which make you a top biller or a good biller, but that's not necessarily how you motivate and manage people.
Not across a diverse team as well. That's the trouble. It's okay if you've got mini me's and versions of you. You might have 3 or 4 of them, but if you've got a team of 15, 20 people and they've got different priorities, some might want to go home early to do their kids, some might need to work early mornings, some might be money motivated, some might be just recognition and they want public display, whatever it is. It's so difficult. So how did you had a team of 14, am I right?
Yes, yeah.
So how did you be able to juggle that? Did you have to do billing as well, or was it just pure management at that point?
I had 2 accounts, I believe. So yeah, in fact, by the end, I believe I
You had none.
I had none, because you have to sit down with everyone, weekly, in my opinion, just to reset barriers. Team meeting.
So a team meeting once per week, and one-to-one with each of your team. So what, an hour?
As long as I think you try and do 30 minutes, but to be fair, that always goes out the window.
That's 15, 16 hours straight away. Half the week was doing just meetings.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just too much. I always think that if you want to be effective, 6 is probably your maximum, I believe.
As a team?
I think so. Or at least introduce team leaders below if you're going to, another step in management, because you're most effective listening to what's going on around you and observing, and making tweaks or corrections, coaching, rather than sitting in a room.
Yeah, because I've done it. And this is going to sound bad because we've got them next week, but we do our one-to-ones, and the first in the mornings, I'm sort of half motivated at 9 o'clock, but by 4 o'clock.
Yeah,
it's just go. I just want to go home. It's just like you've had the same thing, the monotony of it all the time. Listening, it's really tough. So, and actually, one of the podcast shows we had out with Mark Powell from Microsoft, he gave us a very good tip for me and Mark. Well, for Mark more than me, is actually sort of spreading those ones out. So instead of like having, you've got a team of 6 or 7 just all in one day, having like 8 hours in one day. Just doing like 1 a day or 2 or 3 a week, etc. So you spread them out over the period, which so actually everyone gets a proper attentive time. Because otherwise, if you're doing the same thing, reviewing your results, by number 6 comes in, you've switched off.
And if you don't give an individual the time and attention they deserve, then you'll lose them as well.
Yeah,
it's a quick way to demotivate someone, probably.
So would you say that your team Beta was sort of like a best kept secret, because you were sort of a solutions team, but you weren't known for that really as Beta at that time?
I think externally people didn't know Beta as a solutions enterprise solutions team or division. Apart from if you dealt with us, of course, and a lot of our business was going in, seeing customers and cultivating relationships over many years. Best kept secrets, I like that. I think that the team I had was amazing. They were fantastic, and they've gone on to do fantastic things in the channel now in the last year. Lucky to have some with me, and others have gone elsewhere, and they're doing really well. And I'm not surprised. We had a fantastic team there.
So let's move on. So was it when was Beta go into liquidation? What year was that? Was it last year or the year before?
Last year, October.
Okay, was that obviously that come as a shock?
Yeah, it's devastating. Yeah. It's a big shock. It's for the first job I had. I used to get in the office at 7:15 every day and leave at 6 p.m. No lunch breaks for years. Just completely dedicated to the job and the company. And yeah, it was a real shock, real surprise. Sad, really, But you can't. Nobody's gonna. Weep for you. You've got to bounce back quickly and figure out what you're going to do. The best thing I ever did was dry October. I was doing a charity, so I was sober for the entire month of October. I was just completely focused. So when it happened, it was no
clear head, clear thinking,
and
well, was it clear head, clear thinking? Because you had 2 options when you left: go and get a nice, safe job, or do the ridiculous thing of starting a company. So you said you had a clear head, but you made the wrong decision because you started a company, which is bonkers at that time, I would say. So tell us about that. Obviously, you, Ben, and how did that decision come about? Because you must have had choices about you'd had a stellar CV, you'd been successful, you'd been promoted, you could have got a job anywhere in distribution or a particular vendor. Why did you do this crazy thing of thinking of an idea of starting a company in distribution in 2019? Nuts. Just nuts.
Yeah.
Ben, that's you as well.
I am. Do you know what? It was absolutely bonkers. But the best thing I've ever done in my life. The most rewarding thing. Harry and David Treadwell, right there from the beginning with us. But we sat down in a Costa and we divvied up our customers. And Harry and David could have went anywhere in the industry too, and as could Ben. And we looked at our customers that we had. By the end of Beta, this was a £60 million division.
Which is a big chunk of the company, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
Third of the company.
it was, yeah, and it was created from nothing, with the same individuals who were there from the start till the end. So we sat down in a Costa and we looked at our customers, which we had to commit to each other, live and die by this. Are they going to come with us if we set up our own company? And we had a list of customers by the end of it, and then we halved it just to be safe. And then if we realised...
So you said, Steve, I've got X number of customers, they'll come with it. And
I'm
then you halved that after...
And then I said...
You're 100% they're going to come, but half that, that's what...
We're going to have to be we're going to half it, because we have to be that sure that we can build a business. And that's how it started.
Can you remember how many customers that was?
Yeah, I remember exactly. It's 21. Yeah.
Like after halving. So you
Yeah.
had 42 and you said 21.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But you've only put on 4, Ben said.
And then we...
Sorry, Ben, that was the information you told me on the CRN.
So, yeah, I mean, they've all come on board, and
Yeah, of course they have. Yeah,
what we did was we looked at the technologies that they would buy from us, and then we went straight out to the vendors, and we started approaching vendors, and then we needed investment.
But where did the credibility come? Obviously, I understood that you had customers, etc. But also, as well, I heard a whisper, a dicky bird of a crazy name for a company called Dynamic Data. You would have You definitely wouldn't have got any. You wouldn't have got any vendors for you to call it Dynamic Data.
Unbelievable, yeah. But unfortunately, there's someone probably listening to this who's called Dynamic Data, because the reason we're not called it is because somebody else had the name. So we were very close to that. Thank God that didn't happen. But yeah, Titan Data Solutions. That was what we decided to call our distributor.
But to go out to vendors, not because you remember you saying like you had when you went to vendors, you didn't even have a name. We
didn't have a name till the day we registered the company.
So what?
But the name wasn't even important to us,
But how do you go out to a? Yeah, I'm going out to a picture vendor. Yeah, like you, we're a distributor. What are you called? Don't know yet.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that the value we could add to our vendors, and the vendors know us really well for years and years, and the customers and relationships we had, and they had 2 options themselves. I mean, crazily, back a startup disty who you trust implicitly as individuals and you know that they will deliver, or do you go and sign another disty to try and fill that gap? So that was, I think, probably the decision they had to make, and they backed us, and we're eternally grateful for that, because.
Was there any scary moments? Was there any scary moments you think, God, this isn't gonna launch?
There was never any real doubt that we would do it, but we put in such a clear plan, step by step, of what we needed to chalk off. And because you were literally living on the edge, you didn't even have time to think about what are we gonna do. What if? It was literally, this is what we need to do to survive, to build a business. And we knocked them off one by one, day by day, and remarkably, we found an investor, and we were given a warehouse and an office free of charge for a year.
Wow, that was a good break.
Great break. Great guy as well. So we gave away 20%, and he invested in, and that gave us a bit of liquidity to go and invest in stock once the vendor signed us. And by the end of November, I think we had 20 customers signed up, and we were shipping our first products.
Not yours though. That was
Not
Ben's.
mine. Yeah, I don't sell.
Oh dear. No, fantastic. And obviously that story goes on because when we saw each other at CRN, and I saw Ben, to see your name up in lights at a prestigious event like that, when you'd been in business one year.
I think when we put our submission in, we had been trading for 7 months. So
which is nuts, Steve, really, isn't it? To get highly commended in the category, and I think am I right? Is it either Exerts or Hammer? They didn't even get highly commended. So you've gone above them in that recognition. What did you put in your submission to sort of stand you out to sort of get that recognition? Because a year ago, no one had heard of Titan.
Yeah, I think that's probably still true today for some people, vendors and customers alike.
Not for me, because I keep on getting messages from Ben on LinkedIn. Well, status updates from you guys.
Yeah.
So I think your PR wagon's been quite
We're
good.
doing okay, and our submission was based on a case study, but we plugged a gap in the supply chain for our vendor, which was a global shortage, which was a quite technical solution of reformatting and reinitializing a solution and tape products. So that was our case study, and petabytes of data or petabytes of solutions went out the door and helped our vendors immensely. We had some fantastic director level comments about Titan and the experience of working with us, and we just explained what we're trying to achieve as a disty, or what think is, if you're setting up a company in 2019 as a distributor, you do have the luxury to take a look around about and absorb everything you've been told over the last 10 years, and build a business around what's wrong with the channel. And that's what we did. And those customers I was referring to, we looked at every single one of them in detail, and we figured out what could we do to solve all of their problems. And if we could do that for the 21, we could do that for everyone. And while you're young and agile and you have that ability and luxury to move quickly, we can still do that today. So we did have that luxury, and I think if you're a bigger organisation, obviously that ship takes longer to turn. But distribution's becoming better at selling solutions. I see that.
Yeah.
I do see that, and the distribution is adapting across the channel.
Do you see a distribution dying at all in the market? A few years ago, people were saying, "Oh yeah, distribution aren't going to hold stock. It's going to be more software related, so distribution will die, and no one will need them at all." Or do you think it's potentially still alive and thriving and doing well? Because there's still some there's lots of good distributors, but there's still some very, very, very good distributors adding value to the channel and immensely intrinsic into the channel relationship. So do you see it as potentially dying, or do you still see it as thriving?
No, I honestly see it as thriving, and obviously I would say that, but I do. Distribution is an extension of the vendor. It's not just it used to be a warehouse and stock and fulfillment, but distribution would have died a long time ago if it didn't adapt quicker. If you would just, and sometimes when there are frustrations that I hear, I don't have any sympathy for the disty. If they're providing a crap service, I don't, and feedback is critical to your organisation. So if you can't take that criticism and change the way you're formatted or the service you give a reseller, then more for you. But distribution is thriving. I would say that distribution adds immense value to the vendor as well. If you look at what would happen if there wasn't distribution in the UK, you would lose an incredible amount of skill set and specialism, verticalisation, breadth. I think my answer is it's thriving.
Do you know, we spoke earlier about relationships, and obviously you started a business based on relationships. Fact, you Ben and the two other guys come to relationships and said how many can bring. Why do you think that some of the large distributors, and I won't name names, but it's obvious who I'm talking about, when you call up those sort of guys, they're just, can you give me your account number? Here's your quote. There doesn't seem to be any value from them. Then they can't remember your account number. I get loads of resellers saying to me, I'll call up XYZ distributor. Oh, it's Joe from this reseller. What's your account number? It's like, I've just said it's Joe from this reseller. You look it up what my account number is. I shouldn't be able to give you my account number. You should know what it is. Why is that? It's just a high turnover of staff? Is it in relationships? Because it seems if you go to more the niche guys, they're a bit more nimble, they're a bit more specialist, they're invested in more of the relationship. But the broadliners, you might as well be in a call centre.
Yeah, I think, it's fair feedback, and I can't relate to it personally. I can only give my opinion, but I can't relate to that world where, I don't have an answer because I can't.
We'll make one up. Then,
it wouldn't. It just doesn't enter my. It can't enter my thinking. Like I would never do that. We wouldn't. You've got to value your customer and your relationship, and if you're reducing them to the lowest common denominator of what's your account number rather than treating them as a person and a customer, then
more for you.
Yeah.
You touched earlier on about how you used to profile a customer, where you'd look at, you almost like you'd have a vision of what the customer would be like. So talk through, if sort of a newbie was coming into distribution and he wanted to profile a customer,
Yeah.
talk through how you would do it when you did the job.
Well, profiling is everything, I think. Especially if you're trying to cultivate relationships, develop your stance within a business or a reseller, or even if you're going out to a new business, cold calling. So, for us or for me, if you do it for long enough, you should be able to look at a reseller website and automatically know what their strategy is to market, what vendors they use in each
Specialism,
space,
distributors or whatever.
and I know straight away who, by the collection of vendors they've got, who they buy from, and that's quite clear. But to a new person in the industry, they may not know that, so we would go through all of the distribution websites and the vendors they use and the reasons why. We would compare it to ours. We'd find our angles, and we have a strong proposition. Once that's clear, you can then look at profiling customers, and it's a multi-layered approach to how you will construct and build relationships within a reseller, and it's not going to be solved in one phone call, I assure you. But over time, I always have a picture in my head of the key individuals in that organisation and the pain points and what motivates that person, and what they look for in a disty, and the things that you need to tick on their box for them to say approved Titan. And it's different for everyone. So I've got a questionnaire, I've got what everyone's job role is, what motivates them, probably how they're paid, and the reasons where we fit and why we fit to that individual within every account.
Who taught you that?
You learn it from
Trial and error?
having no plan selling volume products.
Yeah. No, Steve, we don't want to use you, dude.
Exactly. Like I say, I can teach that, which is fantastic. Because it's not complex. I wish someone showed me earlier.
Why don't you think there is the investment into training earlier? Because you've been successful and you're working for yourself now, and you're profiling customers. So you gave a lot of theory there. I'm profiling customers. I'm looking at this. I'm looking at their buying motivators, etc., etc., etc. That's a lot of theory before you make the call. Now, if you're working at a distributor, they're expecting what? You to make the bloody call. They're expecting you just to call. Don't worry about doing the theory. They'll be like, Steve, stop doing about your theory and profile and just bloody call them.
But then we're going back to the example of KPIs for the sake of KPIs without the fault of it. Make 30 calls a day, even if they're rubbish. That doesn't work anymore. Yeah, you have to do the right things, and you have to do it the right way, rather than make 5 good calls and 30 rubbish ones. But it goes back to training, and the way I think is institutionalized, because every vendor comes in with almost the same presentation, just with a different words, and it's very uninspiring. And the best way I could say it is knowledge is the acquisition of information, intelligence is knowing how to use it, and I don't see applied theory in the literature that we're being shown. And I think that's inherent across the channel, across everything, and every training. So the ability to adapt what you've learned into a real life situation where you're explaining the benefits.
As I said to you earlier, why don't the vendors go out? You said you'd like the vendors to go out of union deals. Why don't the vendors go out and help distribution with deals?
Well, our vendors do. Our vendors are in our DNA, I'd say, and they're a part of us. We're an extension of them, so we know our vendors' product explicitly. And I love it when they come out with us, because we are an open book distributor with our vendors. So there's no fear of information going missing, or there's no.
You're not hiding clients from them and not worried about. Yeah.
No, because that's not the way you should operate. I feel
you've got transparency.
Complete transparency, because it's a two-way street, and we're the same with our resellers as well. If a customer's in a pickle and they need a good deal or a good price, we've got an open book policy. Because if we can help you out, I'm sure you'll help us out sometime. And
but there is points where, and and I want you to give the example you told me earlier, where a vendor might help a partner do a deal or a distributor do a deal, and after a period of time, if they got run, they'll just go direct anywhere and nick the deal off it.
You hear, I hear this a lot. I've always heard this across the tier ones. There's one in particular who's a real protagonist, and I can't believe how short-sighted a vendor would have to be to take a deal direct. And I know of one where there was a regular installation of servers into a data center, many data centers across the UK. It's a small reseller, and the vendor eventually took them direct. It's just
terrible.
It's disgracefully
because they've never had the opportunity.
Well, you lose a customer who could bring you another opportunity like that. You alienate many others,
and the bad PR of it.
It's terrible.
Obviously, our channel chat listeners now will never use them again.
Well, I haven't mentioned their names, so I wouldn't want to do that. But I'm not saying anything that people probably listening haven't heard before.
Yeah, no, it's bad. How do you think we could fix that? Why isn't there more transparency? You said you got transparency with all your vendors. Why isn't everyone open like that?
I think it's down to relationship. It goes back to that and trust. I trust our vendors. I really do, and they trust us. If there ever was a critical piece of business to them, and they said to us, "Please step aside for the sake of it," we'd probably let that happen. But we trust them, and they would never do that to us. It's too short-sighted. Our vendors don't operate like that, to be fair, and we wouldn't either. So, but it is a problem. I don't know how to solve that. I don't know whether it's too much control and from certain individuals within vendors, or if there's too much pressure, or there's a lack of feedback which makes people panic in certain situations. I mean, I do think there's quite a poor. There's a lack of feedback on quotes, I'd say, across the channel, but. What do you do if you're that customer who sent out that same quote to 10 people, and then 10 people are asking you for feedback on it constantly, and then you've
caused the problem yourself, haven't you?
So, but there is a problem there in itself, and it doesn't lie with the reseller or the disty or the vendor. There's just some people are just a nuisance, but maybe a lack of feedback causes a vendor to get twitchy and do it. I don't know, but it's not happened to me before. It wouldn't happen with our vendors.
So, to summarise, obviously this year, obviously a phenomenal year. Congratulations on your success at being shortlisted and highly commended. I'm sure if they see Ben's dancing next year, you won't be shortlisted. But what's going to be the plan for 2020 for you guys?
More of the same.
Any targeted vendors you're looking at? Or?
We have some targets in backup. So yeah, backup software vendors. That's our next move, I believe. I'd say that we probably look to announce something there. We're going to move premise.
Right, where are you going to be moved to?
We've got a few options at the moment we're looking at. It's quite complex. It's not. You've got quite a few people in our office now. We've outgrown it, and it's a delicate issue if you're going to move people.
Yeah.
So you've got to consider all angles. So we've got a few options we're just mulling over at the moment, but we are definitely moving out in March to a bigger premise, which will be fantastic. And efficiency. But if I had to name one thing for next year, efficiency.
And that's internally, like
internal efficiencies, because we had one. We're 12 months in, or 13 months in now, and we'll finish our financial year doing £15 million. But we've done it running round. And we've started redefining roles and structures, and people have stopped doing certain things they were doing to help the company out in the early days. We can now start to reevaluate, look back, and streamline what we've been doing. New back office system with analytics, but we're constantly looking back, trying to improve and become more efficient. So that's my biggest goal for next year is to become more efficient.
Okay, great. My last couple of questions for you, Steve. First one. If you could have one thing you'd change about the channel now to make it more efficient or better, what would it be?
What would it be? That's a good question. I think for me, if there's one thing I would change, it would be to just encourage resellers to listen to value distribution more, because the way I see it, when I go and talk to business owners across the channel, we are adding a unique insight into your industry. And we can add a lot of value.
360 view of what's happening.
We sit at the top, so we do have a 360 view. So we see everything, and we can give you great insight, be way beyond the deal registration and a product. Just and I'd implore, if anyone's listening, to give us a call. ask me for some advice. You know, we deal with over 500 VARs, MSPs, and system integrators in the UK. So we do learn things, and we could probably pass on some knowledge. So happy to come down for a coffee. And that would be the one thing I'd change, or I would ask is, for business owners out there who are listening to, be a little bit more open-minded to the disties out there who aren't broadliners, who truly want to add value to your business, like Titan.
And my last question, and you're in a great position to ask this, because not only you're a graduate, you've got into an account manager role, you've promoted to the top of sales manager, but then you've got to start your own company all pretty quick. What would be the one bit of advice you'd give either a contributor or a manager who wanted to make a name for himself, like you and Ben have, to come into our industry and do it? What would be the one bit of advice?
Work hard.
No,
that's the there's no shortcuts.
No shortcuts. Yeah.
Patience. I think if you want to become a manager, you've got to start thinking about it way before you're asked. And I think it's quite a common observation is that the best salespeople don't make the best managers. And I was caught short. I'd say if I was to look back and say that wasn't right, it would be when I became a manager and I didn't have the skill set, or I wasn't equipped. So I probably lost a few months there trying to learn on the job, and that's not fair to the people you're managing at the time, I feel. Although sometimes it's out of your control. But if you want to be a manager, start preparing for it now. There's more than enough literature, courses out there to start applying and start learning. Also, put yourself on the radar. Share your successes. Share your plan or your vision with your direct report, because if they don't know what your goal is, and you're all of a sudden demotivated or demoralised further down the line, and they don't know that, they could lose a good person in yourself, or you might end up walking out on what could have been a really good opportunity. So put yourself on someone's radar if you have aspirations to be a manager, and equip yourself with the necessary skills.
Steve, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on. Good luck to you and Ben in 2020, and I'll see you CRN next year, hopefully as winners.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Cheers, Steve.
Mark.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us and listening to another episode of our Channel Chat podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard and are listening on iTunes, please could you give us a review and subscribe in order to get the newest episodes as soon as they're released. Otherwise, as always, we release an episode every Thursday at midday, so hopefully you can join us then.